Discover how 3 innocent piglets were saved in an amazing rescue from a giant Komodo dragon attack. Emma Hart had always believed in the quiet joy of her life, a gentle veterinarian in a small Midwest town where her heart kept time with the rhythm of the animals she cared for. Yet, the whisper of skepticism that trailed her footsteps was an uninvited presence, underscoring every triumph with a twinge of doubt. After all, what did it matter that she treated countless strays and farm animals with love and care? To many, she was still just a country vet, her humble beginnings nothing more than a wisp of a background that inspired little respect. On a frigid autumn day, as the wind rattled through the barn, Emma stumbled onto a scene that sent a chill racing down her spine. A trio of piglets shivering in fear, abandoned and vulnerable. Nearby, shadows stirred ominously. A Komodo dragon, recently escaped from a pet store, claimed the space around them as its hunting ground. The horror of the situation struck Emma with paralyzing force. Should she step in, risking her life for 3 small creatures when the townsfolk already considered her efforts foolish? In a matter of moments, Emma felt the weight of the entire community's skepticism bearing down on her shoulders. Would they ever accept her? A facade of confidence cracked as the realization dawned that their judgment could turn to condemnation in an instant if she failed. As whispers of doubt floated through her mind, her heart raced, a wild mix of determination and fear. The harsh reality was clear. She was no seasoned hero, but a simple veterinarian doing what she was passionate about. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. Surrounded by uncertainty, Emma's thoughts spiraled into a vortex of self-doubt. What if she faltered? The dragon was massive, a terrifying creature with primal instincts that could easily crush her. Would the townsfolk see her as a fool if she got hurt? The palpitations in her chest were relentless, each beat reminding her she was teetering on the brink of an irrational dream. But as she gazed into the frightened eyes of those piglets, the undeniable flicker of determination began to burn steadily within her. The imminent danger twisted the air around her, awakening her childhood dreams as a veterinarian. Rescue, bravery, self-sacrifice. With conviction coursing through her, Emma tightened her grip on that dream. On the verge of dismantling every doubt that had followed her, she was about to confront the whispered doubts and fears, not just from the townsfolk, but from the deepest corners of her very being. As she steeled herself, the Komodo dragon shifted, its piercing gaze locking onto her. At that moment, Emma stood at the precipice of her life, grappling with the ultimate question. Could she rise to meet the fight for those innocent lives, and in doing so, prove her worth to herself and the very people who had never believed in her? Time slowed as Emma locked eyes with the Komodo dragon, an ancient instinct roiling deep within her. She felt the weight of its gaze, calculating, predatory, poised to pounce. But in that unyielding moment, something shifted. The fears that had plagued her began to transform into a singular focus. Those piglets, their small bodies trembling, faced a peril that she could face down. Her thoughts raced, a whirlwind of strategies materializing. She could recall tactics learned during her training, ways to divert animals, redirect their attention. But as the Komodo dragon flicked its tongue, Emma knew she needed to do more than just distract. She needed to act, to assert herself in a way that shattered the narrative others had constructed of her, one she had internalized far too long. The first step was to identify the best path. The dragon's body, sleek and powerful, coiled low, almost gliding on the dirt as it prepared to leap. Emma calculated her distance from it. She had perhaps a few heartbeats to formulate her plan before the moment of truth arrived. This wasn't just a test of her physical abilities, it demanded her courage, resourcefulness, and skill. "Come on, Emma," she whispered to herself, the mantra spilling from her lips as she took a step forward, her boots crunching against the gravel. "You've trained for this." The echoes of her mentors reverberated in her mind, pushing her to embrace the unknown rather than shrink away from it. With a deep breath that felt buoyant despite her fears, Emma reached for a metal feed bucket always kept nearby. She lifted it high above her head, her arms trembling, the adrenaline coursing through her body. It was a simple distraction, yet she hoped it would wield enough power to capture the dragon's attention. "Hey, over here!" she shouted, projecting her voice, attempting to diminish the fear in her tone. The dragon paused, its head cocking to one side, momentarily intrigued by her movement. That brief moment bought her time, a small, invaluable gift. With a fierce shout, Emma hurled the bucket against the barn's wooden wall, the sound echoing through the space. The unsettling noise fractured the air, pulling the dragon's focus. Then, before it could recover, Emma darted toward the piglets, scooping up the closest one, its tiny legs kicking in surprise. She felt a rush of warmth flood her heart as it snuggled instinctively against her chest. But as she wrapped her free arm around the other two, the dragon's head snapped back around, its eyes narrowing in confusion and rage. For a fleeting moment, dread coursed through her. Emma released a shaky breath, battling the urge to retreat. But she couldn't back down, not now. With one piglet tightly clutched and the others nestled close, she made her way toward the barn door, her heels digging into the earth. Each step felt like an eternity, the weight of her doubts still heavy. Yet with each heartbeat, confidence surged a little more. Emma was moving towards something greater, a moment that could redefine all that had come before. Yet just as she reached the threshold, a guttural growl erupted. The dragon lunged forward, its immense body blocking her path. Emma's heart sunk as she grappled with the reality that this fight was far from over. Behind the curtain of urgency that boiled in her veins loomed an undeniable truth. She had not just stepped into a battle for the piglets, she was fighting for herself. In that pivotal moment, the question burned brighter than ever. Would she find the strength to face the greater foe within? The animal instinct surged hot and wild, stirring something deep inside her that had remained dormant. And this was only the beginning of a revelation that would alter her path forever. The time had come to confront not just the dragon blocking her way, but the shadow of doubt that had lingered by her side for far too long. What other strengths lay dormant within her, waiting for this moment of awakening? Emma's heart raced as the Komodo dragon lunged, its massive body suddenly an immovable wall between her and freedom. In that moment, every instinct in her screamed to flee, yet a deeper resolve set her feet like roots to the ground. The piglets remained nestled against her, their warmth grounding her in a swirl of fear and adrenaline. As the dragon's eyes fixed on her, Emma willed herself to act decisively. She recalled her training, the countless hours spent learning how to read animal behavior, to understand that aggression often stemmed from fear. She couldn't afford to falter. The moment had come to execute her plan, to transform that frightened energy into something constructive. The barn around her seemed to fade, her entire world narrowed to the creature before her. She channeled her focus, recalling a specific lesson about confrontation. "You have to be bigger than your fear," her mentor's voice echoed in her mind. With a deep intake of breath, she lifted her chin. If she was going to stand her ground, she had to make the creature believe she was not a target but a force to reckon with. "Hey!" she shouted again, louder this time, her voice brimming with unexpected authority. "You don't want any of this. These aren't yours." She stepped sideways, raising the bucket again, brandishing it like a shield. Her mind raced with calculations. If she could just keep the dragon intrigued enough to redirect its focus. The dragon's nostrils flared as it smelled the air, its sinuous body coiling tighter. Emma continued to shout, mixing her demands with small movements, hoping to confuse it. She swung the bucket, creating rhythm and sound, anything to draw its eyes away from the piglets. In that charged atmosphere, sweat trickled down her back as she moved. Fear still gnawed at her resolve, but the urge to save the piglets ignited a fire deep within her, powerful and undeniable. She realized she wasn't just protecting the animals, she was excavating her own potential, a dawning recognition of her strength. Time stretched as she moved. Each second felt monumental. She seized a pitchfork resting against the barn wall, gripping it like a talisman. The dragon's body shifted again, still poised to strike, but uncertain now. Emma took a shaky breath, the pitchfork an extension of her will. "Stay back," she declared, her command echoing through the barn with a newfound fierceness. The dragon paused, evaluating her with a mixture of curiosity and caution. Emma sensed the shift. What if she could intimidate it just enough? What if she made herself appear larger and more threatening? She raised the pitchfork over her head, brandishing it with every ounce of confidence she could muster. "Get away from my friends!" she roared, empowered by the immediacy of the situation. The dragon hesitated, taken aback by her audacity. For a flickering moment, her shouted challenge created a space between combatant and protector, a harrowing quiet filled with tension. That was when Emma understood. Every challenge she faced wasn't about overcoming an external force, but about the internal battles she had long avoided. The dragon was merely a reflection of all those doubts, indifference, and insecurities that had echoed in her mind. As the creature recalibrated, Emma didn't allow her thoughts to spiral into the familiar tracks of doubt. Instead, she focused on what lay within her: determination, strategy, an untapped reservoir of tenacity waiting to be unleashed. But just as she prepared for the next move, a strange crack echoed behind her. A wooden board splintered, and the structure of the barn creaked ominously. Emma's heart dropped, the world spinning anew. She was not just fighting a predator for the lives of the piglets. She was racing the clock against an unseen collapse. Would she navigate this harrowing challenge in time to save them all? With the dragon still assessing her in the dim light, Emma realized that a more significant revelation awaited. This was not just her test of courage, but a pivotal catalyst, the clash of boundaries and the genesis of the warrior she was meant to become. How far could she push herself when every instinct told her to retreat? As the barn trembled under the weight of her revelation, so too did her understanding of her capabilities. Emma locked on to the Komodo dragon once more, fully prepared to face whatever tested her next. What awaited behind this fragile veil of fear? Emma could feel the pressure build as the barn strained against the low rumble of the storm outside, a ghost of a warning echoing through the wooden beams. The combination of the dragon's threatening posture and the barn's imminent collapse tightened her resolve. This moment was not about meat versus predator, but a critical test of her character, an existential pivot that would chart the course of her future in ways she had never considered. Raising the pitchfork, she shifted her weight onto the balls of her feet, eyeing the dragon with a fierce intensity. "No more hesitation," she whispered, as though the dragon could hear her internal mantra. She had one shot to use the environment to her advantage. If the barn was threatening to crumble, perhaps she could turn that same destruction into her ally. Slipping a sideways glance at the end of the barn, where a wooden beam sagged like a wounded animal, she felt an impulsive spark of inspiration. She would have to outsmart the dragon, not just intimidate it. Her heartbeat thudded in rhythm with the oncoming tempest. She could almost hear the ticking clock urging her into action. "All right then, big guy," she rallied, embodying a bravado she didn't fully feel, each word rolling off her tongue with a determined inflection. "If you want to dance, let's do it." She took a step back, positioning herself as bait that would lead the dragon away from the piglets and towards the precarious structure that housed them. Adrenaline coursed through her as she released a fierce shout, charging past the dragon while swinging the pitchfork in a wide arc. The creature lunged forward, drawn by the movement and noise, instinctively pursuing its prey. Emma could feel the rush of air from its body as it surged past her, and she pivoted with timing that felt almost instinctual. In that brief moment, she seized the opportunity. Now! The word, a primal command, coiled around her thoughts with urgent electricity. She darted toward the unstable beam, reinvigorated by her high stakes. Emma's strategy was simple yet audacious. She needed to make the dragon chase her into a position where it would destabilize the structure. If she could just lure it enough, the impending collapse might work in her favor. Pushing fear aside, she ran to the left, leading the dragon further into the barn's heart as it bellowed, snapping its jaws in frustration. The pitchfork now almost forgotten in the bubble of chaos. She could feel the ground quake beneath her with each heavy beat of the dragon's footfalls. With renewed determination, her thoughts buzzed with possibility. This moment was not just about survival, it was a revelation of her own resilience and cunning tactics honed through countless hours of training. The dragon didn't dictate her control of the situation, she could manipulate its movements. Her heart raced as she spotted the vulnerable point of the beam, barely held together by crumbling wood. The storm's howling wind seemed to whisper secrets of strength hidden deep within her. Emma took a chance, positioning herself just out of the creature's reach. "Come on," she urged aloud, challenging both herself and the dragon. The beast lunged again, its enormous mass colliding with the aged wood. Emma's instincts screamed as she braced for impact. The barn groaned, a rickety reminder of its fragility. In one triumphant beat, she saw it, a splintering crack spiderwebbing through the beam. Could it really work? The realization surged like fire through her veins. She had taken control. This feral dance was unfolding under her leadership. The realization invigorated her as she reaffirmed her purpose. She was not just defending the piglets or herself. She was becoming something more potent, more defined. The dragon, sensing its prey just out of reach, roared in frustration, charging again with a ferocity that seemed insatiable. As Emma's feet propelled her back, time elongated. She linked every ounce of her training and instinct, betting everything that she could turn the tide. Then, without warning, the inevitable happened. A loud crack resonated through the barn, echoing her breathless anticipation. She could see the pieces beginning to fall, the barn's structure crumbling under the pressure of the collision. "Let's see if your strength can handle this," she murmured, standing against the wave of tumultuous change. With the climax approaching, she felt her entire being align with her mission. It was a bizarre catharsis, embracing fear as a companion rather than an enemy. But even as she braced for the fallout, a sudden thought pierced her focus. What if the collapse wasn't enough? What if she had to face more than just the dragon? The kind of chaos looming before her could redefine her understanding of bravery entirely. And amidst the den, as the dust began to swirl and the world threatened to erupt, the flickering question tethered itself to her. Was she truly ready for the storm that followed? Emma's world narrowed as she stood amidst the chaos, the barn's framework groaning like a wounded animal. A surge of energy pulsed through her veins, grounding her in the critical moment before the inevitable clash of wood and scale. The barn's collapse was no longer a mere possibility, it was a certainty. And yet she had not merely allowed herself to be swept away by its tumult. No, she was orchestrating a dangerous ballet of strategy and instinct, transforming fear into a weapon. Her mind raced through the plan she had only just begun to form. She wasn't merely backing away. She was plotting the next move in a landscape of consequences that lay beyond the tearing beams and the ravenous dragon. Each crack of timber turned her thoughts inward, igniting a fire she hadn't known was banked deep within her soul. Emma, once a girl defined by her surroundings, was evolving into a strategist laden with newfound conviction. A raw thought formed in the depths of her mind. If she could unite her knowledge and environment, she might harness this moment to evoke more than just barbaric survival. This dragon lived within the echo of legends as an unstoppable force. Yet in those stories, the heroes were defined by how they faced their challenges, not shied away. She was not heroic yet. She wasn't certain she ever would be. But this was her time to unearth and claim whatever potential surged at her core. As the barn continued to tremble under the dragon's assault, Emma shifted her focus to her surroundings. Dust motes danced in the half-light, tokens, illuminating the frailty of the barn, but also offering clarity to her mission. She had been explicitly trained for moments of crisis, yet hadn't fully realized that acknowledging her environment was as vital as enduring it. With every swing and shout, she was not just rallying the dragon, she was revealing the core of her own spirit. In the wake of the collision, she spotted the remains of a wooden crate toppled against a wall, fragile but still sturdy enough to serve as a barricade. Realization blossomed. If she could guide the dragon toward that point, it might shield the piglets further trapped in the shadow of the dragon's breath. It was a gamble, breakneck in its audacity, yet the stakes had never been higher, and Emma felt alive. "Hey, over here!" she shouted, sharp and commanding, hurling herself toward the crate just as the dragon recoiled to regain its footing. The approach was reckless, maybe even foolish, but that was not her concern. Instead, she lured the massive beast further into the barn's heart, leading it as a matador entices a bull. Each pulse of fear fueled her drive. She would not back down. But then, an alarming thought breached her concentration. What if her strategy failed? What if, in her bravado, she made a miscalculation that would lead to disaster? Self-doubt seeped through as she narrowly avoided the dragon's snapping jaws. She blinked, caught between retreat and resolve, as her heart thundered against her ribcage. The elemental need to survive surged forward, filling her with both terror and fierceness. She could not falter. "Come on," she yelled again, summoning every ounce of her determination, hovering on the knife edge of vulnerability and power. This was her moment of truth. If she faltered, she jeopardized not only her life, but also the lives of the piglets, drawing a line in the sand where decision manifested into action. As the dragon lunged once more, Emma stood at the threshold of brilliance and madness. The next move could either be her crowning achievement or her abysmal ruin. Coursing through her veins was the essence of every battle she had trained for, all converging in this electrifying moment of choice. She could only hope that as the structure came crashing down, it wouldn't crush her spirit in the rubble. And yet, as the dust settled, a chilling instinct whispered that whether she emerged unscathed or broken, something monumental awaited on the other side. What would rise from that chaos? Would she stand ready to greet it? The challenge loomed, building an unexpected intensity within her as she prepared to confront whatever lay ahead. As the dust began to clear, Emma's heart raced, each thud echoing in her ears like a relentless drum. She braced for impact, aware that the next few moments would define her not merely as a survivor, but as a leader in this tumultuous narrative of her life. A flicker of uncertainty tried to take root, but she quickly extinguished it, summoning her resolve like flint striking steel. The barn, once a bastion of comfort, transformed into a lively battlefield. Debris scattered in chaotic disarray, like the remnants of her old self. The dragon prowled amid the wooden beams, its scales glinting ominously in the haphazard light. Emma resisted the urge to retreat, knowing that to abandon the piglets was a failure she couldn't bear. No more could she live in the realm of safety and complacency. This was a point of no return, a chance to emerge from the shadows of fear into the brilliance of action. She darted towards the crate, her instincts honed by years of training kicking into high gear. Every movement felt pulsating and deliberate. She called upon the lessons learned during her training for crisis response, recalling the importance of quick, clear decisions. Alone in the shadow of a great beast, Emma realized she was no longer just a fledgling in her field. This was a forge for her spirit, a chance to reshape her destiny in flames of nerve and ferocity. Her fingers brushed the edges of the crate as she felt the ground tremble beneath the dragon's weight. With a grunt, she heaved the crate into position, forming a makeshift barrier. "This will hold, this will work," she murmured, layering her voice with conviction. Each syllable was a promise she made not just to the piglets, but to herself. As the dragon reared back, frothing gnashers ready to strike, Emma stood obstinately between the creature and the pigs. Anchoring her thoughts in the names of the piglets, she focused her energy into a singular purpose. This wasn't simply survival, it was protection, a mantle she had never worn before, an identity she was choosing now. The lines of who she was and who she could become began to blur beautifully. Just then, a movement caught her eye. One of the piglets had stumbled toward her, eyes wide like polished marbles. Fear surged through Emma for a heartbeat. The instinct was to scoot away, let the crush of chaos consume her. But instead, another feeling gripped her, a fierce desire to shield the innocent. In the raw throes of her decision, she crouched low, extending a steady hand. "Come on, little one," she coaxed, shaking off doubt as the piglet stepped closer. With the creature's breath becoming a furious whirlwind behind her, she used the fleeting moments of distraction to usher the other two piglets toward safety. Her mind became a labyrinth of strategy, each decision branching into the unknown, but she felt a confidence begin to solidify. Emma could orchestrate a symphony of choices despite the cacophony. As she directed the young pigs with quiet urgency, the barn creaked ominously. She was painfully aware of the structure's instability. Each moment achieved catalyzed within her a sense of empowerment she hadn't anticipated. If she could guide the innocent, perhaps there lay within her a reservoir of strength, an unyielding grit that bore a semblance of heroism. She had to keep going. "Over here! This way!" she called, her voice rising in urgency, shattering the oppressive silence that hovered like a curtain. And then she felt it. The ground shuddered more violently. The barn heaved as if ready to surrender, the weight of fate barreling. Everything shifted. Emma's gaze darted to the structural beams above her, straining under the impact. Would she extract not just the piglets, but reclaim her future from its precarious edge? The dragon surged forward, angered and relentless, and with it came the harrowing truth. All she had worked for could indeed be crushed in an instant. But Emma clung to the vision of the piglets, of their safe emergence into daylight. Igniting the final spark of resolve, she prepared for one last desperate maneuver, knowing full well that facing the beast might also force her to recognize the fierceness of her own heart. What would she become when the dust settled, and would it be enough to save them all? Emma's heart pounded a primal rhythm as the dragon lunged. Anticipation coiled around her like a spring, propelling her forward, even as her mind raced with questions. This was more than an act of bravery. She was teetering on the brink of transformation. The moment stretched, allowing her to evaluate her next move against great odds. She glanced back at the little piglets huddled behind the crate, their tiny bodies quaking. For a split second, doubt flickered in her mind. Could she really guide them to safety? But she quickly pushed that thought aside. Survival demanded relentless focus. With a deep breath, she threw her body forward, angling to place herself between the dragon and the helpless creatures. "Stay behind me," she barked, her voice cutting through the commotion like a knife. Commanding presence. Somewhere in her mind, she noticed the shift, a budding authority taking root. Who knew she had this in her? As the dragon lunged again, snapping its jagged teeth mere feet from her face, Emma felt a wild rush of adrenaline surge through her. She needed a plan, a diversion. The dragon's movements, heavy and predictable, felt like a dance she could anticipate. She quickly scanned the barn, noting the scattered tools and debris. Suddenly, an idea sparked. Darting toward a nearby pitchfork, she hefted it as if it were an extension of her arm. The bluster and chaos coiled around her like a storm, but clarity surfaced from the tempest. Emma swung the pitchfork high, aiming not to stab, but to distract, to throw the dragon's focus away from the piglets. She thrust the tool forward, swiping at the air just above the dragon's snout. "Hey, over here, you ugly beast!" she shouted, her confidence unspooling like a banner in the wind. The dragon snarled, its attention momentarily drawn. Did she really just taunt a dragon? Emma felt a rush. This was bravery. This was power. Her heart surged. She could beat back fear and step into the light. In the eye of chaos, she found clarity. This daring venture to save the piglets had become a crucible. Every movement fueled by purpose honed her resolve into a sharp edge. Each time she managed to manipulate the dragon's attention, she could feel her self-image shifting. No longer just a bystander in her life story, she manifested the leader she always aspired to be. With a fierce yell, she continued to maneuver between the dragon and the crate. "This way!" she called to the piglets, using her gaze to direct their movement while never losing sight of the beast. As they slowly inched away from danger, Emma focused on keeping them united. Instinctively, she understood that the smaller creatures thrive on group dynamic, and she had to reinforce that. The barn quaked as the dragon twisted and turned, smoke wafting from its nostrils. Emma felt every jolt resonate through her bones, a reminder that time was not on her side. Clenching her jaw, she pointed toward a side exit where sunlight crept in through a gap. "There! We can make it out!" Would they escape unscathed, or would fate intervene again? Would success transform her forever, or leave her haunted by the aftermath? In this moment of peril, Emma felt the weight of her challenge, and it became clear that the rescue was not merely about physical strength. It hinged on her ability to harness resolve and summon hidden depths of courage. Then, just as she thought they were turning a corner, another crash echoed. A beam snapped, emanating from the barn's rotting structure. Her heart sank. Could she lead her charges to freedom before the barn and their hopes crumbled together? With the entire world hanging in the balance, Emma stared down the dragon, lips pressed into a thin line. Here was the moment she craved. Here lay the battle not just for the piglets' lives, but for her own. The stakes ran higher as the ground beneath her feet trembled ominously, and she set her mind on one singular thought. This ended now. But would her newfound strength be enough to confront not just the dragon, but her past sins? As she initiated the final sweep toward safety, Emma felt the pulse of destiny rising. It was clear that both the barn and her resolve would soon break into something irrevocable. Emma's pulse quickened as she pivoted toward the exit she had identified, every nerve ending aflame with adrenaline. The barn walls trembled with each crash, splintering wood ringing out. Warning bells igniting fierce urgency within her veins. The dragon's snarl echoed, fierce and hungry. "Let's go," she urged, bolstering her resolve. The piglets were still close, but in this pivotal moment, she felt their safety hinged on her unwavering focus. Would they make it out? A whisper of self-doubt crossed her mind, a cold breath of fear rushing in like the draft from the dragon's maw. Could she really lead them to safety? Emma's hand tightened around the pitchfork's handle, her knuckles whitening against the rusted metal. The dragon's gaze, saucer-sized and glaring, made the once inviting sunlight that filtered through the barn's gaps seem more like a cruel trick than a salvation. With a quick, calculated glance behind, she saw the piglets gathered, fixated on her, and that meant they needed her to fight. The weight of responsibility ignited a fierce determination in her core. Emma had never thought of herself as fierce, yet here, amid chaos, she was discovering the jagged edges of strength buried deep inside. "Focus," she murmured, almost to herself, then shouted louder, "We're going now!" As she took a step forward, the dragon lunged again, maw open wide, smoke escaping like a storm on the horizon. Emma acted instinctively, swinging the pitchfork towards the creature, forcing it to shift its weight, buying a fleeting moment of distraction. A flash of movement caught her eye, the piglets breaking into a hesitant jog toward her, instinctively following their leader. "Come on," Emma encouraged, her voice breaking past the panic swirling in the air. With calculated agility, she darted closer to the exit, eyes scanning for the quickest route, now that their escape was broader but still fraught with danger. She felt the tension mount, every muscle trembling with urgency. The resilience she found in her mission pulsed within her, a rapid rhythm matching her racing heart. "Emma!" a raspy voice called, breaking through the chaos. She turned, momentarily distracted by a neighboring barn silhouette. Amber light glimmered off the surface, and there, standing in stark contrast to the turmoil, was Mr. Thompson, the farmer. He appeared to grasp the situation. Urgency etched upon his face matched her own. "Get them out!" he shouted, but his voice shook, vulnerability creeping through his tone. "I'll slow it down." Emma's resolve faltered for a heartbeat. Her moral compass rattled between the burden of responsibility for the piglets and the weight of this unexpected alliance. Who was she to leave him behind to face the beast alone? Could her heart bear the knowledge of sacrificing one for the many? "No, we can save you too," she argued, but Mr. Thompson shook his head vehemently, a hard look etched across his features. "Just go." His steely determination wavered only slightly, but enough for Emma to understand he had made his choice. Putting them first would be his final act. With that, the weight of an impossible decision surged within her as the ground beneath her trembled. "Now!" she yelled again, adrenaline sharpening. Her command. The dragon recoiled, momentarily confused as she gestured towards the sunlight bursting through the exit. Driving the piglets forward, she felt anger close on her heels. Anger at the situation, at the dragon, and now even at herself. But as she pushed through, the strength intertwined with compassion solidified within. She couldn't afford to get swallowed by regret, not now. Desperation mingled with her newfound resolve as they stumbled toward the opening, the light beckoning like a promised sanctuary. Each step resonated with purpose. Each breath felt like freedom beckoning. Suddenly, a guttural roar erupted behind her, punctuating her thoughts with chilling clarity. The dragon surged again, and this time it wasn't a diversion it sought, it was a hunt. Not just for the piglets, but for her. With the threshold in sight, Emma understood that this moment would define her. No longer would she let terror tether her to the shadows of her past mistakes. This was her chance for redemption, for herself, for the piglets, and even Mr. Thompson. But as she plunged forward, leaving the barn behind, a fear crept back in, whispering doubts about what awaited her in the outside world. Would she be hunted then, too? Emma hurled herself toward freedom, driven by instinct, yet aware that the greatest battles were often waged within. As the crack of wood and roar of the beast melded into chaos behind them, her heart embraced the unknown path ahead. A path fraught with uncertainty, but also the promise of profound transformation. Would the journey ahead be one of discovery and healing, or was she walking straight into a new nightmare? Emma's resolve was steeled as she broke into the light. The true fight for her future was only just beginning. The moment Emma burst into the light, a wave of hope surged through her. The fresh air brushed against her skin, starkly different from the stifled atmosphere inside the barn. Yet the liberation was tinged with chaos. Outside, the world felt unfamiliar, wild, and unforgiving, just like the dragon she had left behind. As she turned quickly to usher the piglets through the exit, her heart raced more for their safety than for herself. The sunlight illuminated their tiny forms, but it also highlighted the lurking uncertainty. How far could they run? Would they encounter something even deadlier than the dragon? "Stay close," Emma commanded, spotting a patch of trees nearby that could provide them a moment's refuge. She sprinted toward it, the piglets following dutifully. In this wild flurry of action, a realization dawned within her.
Leading them wasn't merely about survival, it was about harnessing her own fears and uncertainties into a force greater than herself. Reaching the base of the trees, Emma glanced back to ensure they were safe from the dragon's fury. It still roared inside the barn, dissatisfied and furious, but its quest would be paused for now. Breathing heavily, she crouched down, her mind racing in tandem with her heartbeat. "Good job, everyone,"
said, her voice steadier than it felt. The piglets huddled together, their eyes wide and trusting. At that moment, something deep inside Emma shifted. She was not just a girl who had stumbled into an impossible situation. She was a protector. Yet, with that realization came a wave of self-doubt. How would they find food, shelter, security? She felt inadequate in her role, a heavy cloud shadowing her newfound purpose. "Okay, Emma," she whispered to herself, standing up. "Time to think clear." She scanned her surroundings. The trees provided a dense canopy, an advantage against potential threats, and a winding path led further into the woods. With her instincts firing, Emma made a plan. They would have to venture deep, away from the barn and its dangers. "Let's go," she urged, her voice slicing through the remnants of panic. The piglet shuffled behind her, and with each step she took into the forest, she felt the pull of direction. This wasn't just a route to safety, it was a new beginning. The next few moments were rife with tension. Emma listened intently, acutely aware of her surroundings. Each sound from the forest, a rustle of leaves, a distant bird call, held deeper meaning. She was now acutely attuned to the primal nature of her environment, a skill she never knew she possessed. As they forged onward, Emma's heart locked on a single truth. In order to lead, she had to face her own demons, the doubts, the failures, the fear of inadequacy. She could feel them swirling in her mind, threading through her thoughts like dark whispers. "Focus on them," she reminded herself, glancing back at the piglets. Their trust infused her with more strength than she expected. Each soft snort and shuffle reminded her of the responsibility she had willingly embraced. The journey through the woods evolved into a test of endurance, both for her and for the piglets. They navigated through briars and over roots, yet Emma pushed forward, the fire of determination igniting her spirit. Reinforced with purpose, she began to realize that her fears no longer defined her. Rather, they were shadows she could step away from, shadows she could conquer. Moments later, they came upon a clearing filled with wildflowers and sunlight spilling generously. It was a beautiful sight, breathtaking and soothing in its simplicity. Emma paused, allowing herself a moment of reprieve. She crouched once more, this time to inspect the area for signs of safety. "This is good," she said, almost to herself. The world felt more alive here, untouched. She could lay out a plan. Perhaps there were resources they could draw from in this vivid space. Perhaps it could shelter them. Yet no sooner had she allowed herself to breathe than a distant sound penetrated the air. A crack of twigs, a low growl echoing from beyond the trees. Emma's heart raced again, teeth grinding against the impending dread. A new threat loomed, one that would challenge her resolve even further. Emma's next choice would define. This wilderness would embrace her as a leader or swallow her whole. The question reverberated within her, one that pressed heavily against the weight of her last triumph. Was she really ready to confront whatever lay beyond the trees? Emma steeled herself, the unknown drawing nearer. This new test could either cement her growth or unravel it completely. What awaited her would require every ounce of courage she had left. In the clearing, bathed in sunlight, Emma's heart thudded loudly in her chest as the growl reverberated through the trees. The sound was primal and resonated deep within her. In that moment, it was clear. A new beast lay ahead, perhaps more dangerous than the Komodo dragon she had just faced. But she felt a shift within her, a newfound strength that had been forged in the trials of that stormy day. The fear that had once paralyzed her now transformed into a clarion call for action.
She took a step forward, the warmth of the sun against her back, grounding her as she considered her choices. Would she retreat into the shadows of doubt, or would she confront whatever emerged before her with the confidence she had unearthed through challenge? "Piglets, stay close," Emma commanded more firmly this time, her voice steady and resolute. They looked to her with wide eyes, and their trust rewarded her with a renewed sense of purpose. As she moved deeper into the clearing, Emma's instincts sharpened. Her training as a veterinarian had equipped her not only with skills to heal, but also with knowledge of animal behavior. She remembered hearing her mentor say that animals often react out of fear, and it was how one responded to that fear that truly defined the outcome. More growls punctuated the air, each a reminder that she was not in control of her environment, but she was in control of herself. With each breath, confidence replaced any flicker of uncertainty. She would not allow fear to define her actions today. Suddenly, a figure broke through the trees. A wild boar emerged, snuffling towards the ground with a rough, low growl. It paused when it saw Emma, sizing her up with distrustful eyes. The piglets trembled beside her, caught in the crossfire of their instincts. Emma took another step forward, lifting her chin. "Hey there," she soothed, her tone soft yet unwavering. "We mean you no harm." She felt strange, addressing the creature with both authority and empathy. Would it understand her intentions? The boar hesitated, still poised for defense. Emma brainstormed options quickly, her mind racing. She could remember the lessons of calm assertiveness. With gentle determination, she moved, slowly lowering herself to the ground to meet the boar at eye level, making her presence less intimidating. "We're just trying to find a safe place. Can you help us?" The wild animal's aggression began to wane. Its stance softened as it sensed Emma's genuine intent. Something in the way she presented herself shifted the dynamic. A burgeoning respect emerged between them, creating a subtle bond. Emma recognized that her growth had not solely been about defeating challenges. It had been about forging connection. With the boar's focus shifting, Emma gestured for the piglets to come closer, leading them toward the edges of the clearing where the wildflowers blossomed. "Follow me, little ones," she encouraged, fear-anxiety replaced with optimism as she noticed the boar relaxed slightly, almost curious about the tiny creatures. As they cautiously approached, something monumental stirred inside Emma, a realization that she became more than just a protector. She was becoming a leader, a figure that others could find strength within. The reflection of the boar's gaze felt like recognition, and that excitable energy surged within her again. She was no longer just a country vet, but a force to be reckoned with, proven through her actions. The wild boar sniffed at the piglets, an unexpected but magical moment, a unison filled with uncertainty transforming into acceptance. Emma felt a surge of pride and accomplishment bloom as she watched the interaction unfold. It was both remarkable and surreal. Here she was, rallying together creatures that were otherwise bound by nature's instinctual laws. Emma began to work out her next steps. She surveyed the area, identifying spots where they could find water, gather food, and build a temporary sanctuary. The forest was teeming with life, and she was equipped with knowledge on how to survive and thrive. What had once felt like a looming threat now felt like territory ripe for exploration. "This is our home now, even if just for a little while," Emma said with resolve. As the piglets merged into a small herd beside the wild boar, she knew she had truly conquered her fears, not just for their safety, but in redefining how she understood herself. This encounter was her transformation, a milestone signaling that she had stepped into her potential. Days of grappling with self-doubt had forged her into the very protector she aspired to be. Emma was learning to assert her rightful place in the world, not only in caring for animals, but as a being capable of the extraordinary. In the quiet of the now vibrant surroundings, she took a moment to absorb the fulfillment coursing through her veins. She had faced both the dragon and the chaos within, emerging not just intact, but whole, fortified by the challenges she embraced. Emma closed her eyes, breath steadying as the sun warmed her skin, and for the first time she felt a deep sense of home within herself. The journey from dusk to dawn had only just begun. She stood ready to reclaim every part of her story, interlacing her growth with the spirits of those she had saved and those who now journeyed alongside her. As the sun set on this chapter, she felt the urge to share her journey, a vivid reminder of what one could achieve when fear transformed into courage and potential revealed itself in the most unexpected forms. Each step forward would be etched with the sun.
Lessons of resilience and leadership, a commemoration of the bravery she now embodied. So, are you ready to embrace your journey of transformation too? Don't wait any longer. You need to subscribe now to stay connected and join the community of individuals who choose courage over fear. Leave a like now to fuel this journey forward and feed the algorithm. Comment below your reactions and theories on Emma's incredible conclusion. Let's discuss the depths of personal growth together. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformative story. You're not just supporting a channel, you're igniting the fire of inspiration in others. Let's lift each other up, one story at a time.